Fact 1. The Turin King List, a royal history on papyrus. While monumental inscriptions and temple carvings provide valuable information about the reigns of individual pharaohs, the Turin King List, also known as the Turin Royal Canon, offers a unique and comprehensive overview of Egyptian history, spanning centuries and dynasties. This fragmented papyrus, dating back to the reign of Ramses II in the 19th dynasty c. 1279 to 1213 BCE, presents a chronological list of Egyptian rulers, along with the lengths of their reigns, providing invaluable insights into the dynastic succession and the overall timeline of ancient Egypt. The Turin King List is named after the city of Turin, Italy, where it is currently housed in the Egyptian Museum. The papyrus is highly fragmented, with only about half of the original text surviving. Despite its damaged state, the Turin King List remains one of the most important sources for reconstructing Egyptian history. The Turin King List is written in hieratic script, a cursive form of hieroglyphs used for everyday writing. The list begins with the gods who ruled Egypt before the pharaohs, followed by a list of mythical kings, and then a list of historical rulers. The list includes not only the names of the pharaohs, but also the lengths of their reigns in years, months, and days. This information is crucial for establishing a chronology of Egyptian history and for determining the dates of specific events. The Turin King List is not without its limitations. The papyrus is damaged, and some of the entries are incomplete or illegible. The list also omits certain rulers, such as Hatshepsut and Akhenaten, who were considered to be illegitimate or heretical. Despite these limitations, the Turin King List remains an invaluable resource for Egyptologists. It provides a framework for understanding the dynastic succession and the overall timeline of Egyptian history. It also offers insights into the Egyptians' own understanding of their past. The Turin King List has been used by historians and archaeologists to reconstruct the chronology of ancient Egypt and to determine the dates of specific events. It has also been used to identify gaps in our knowledge of Egyptian history and to guide future research. The Turin King List is a testament to the Egyptians' interest in history and their desire to preserve a record of their past. It provides a unique glimpse into their understanding of their own civilization and their place in the world. The list also underscores the importance of written records in preserving knowledge and transmitting it across generations. The fragmented nature of the Turin King List serves as a reminder of the fragility of historical evidence and the challenges of reconstructing the past. However, even in its incomplete state, the Turin King List continues to provide valuable insights into the history of ancient Egypt and to inspire new discoveries. Fact 2. Ancient Egyptian trade and economy. Ancient Egypt's economy was largely based on agriculture, but trade, both internal and external, played a vital role in its prosperity and development. The Nile River served as a major transportation artery, facilitating trade within Egypt, while maritime routes connected Egypt with other regions of the ancient world. Agriculture was the foundation of the Egyptian economy. The fertile lands along the Nile River produced abundant harvests of wheat, barley, flax, and other crops. Farmers paid taxes to the pharaoh in the form of crops, which were then stored in granaries and distributed to the population. The Egyptians also raised livestock, such as cattle, sheep, and goats. Irrigation was essential for successful agriculture, and the Egyptians developed sophisticated systems of canals and dikes to manage the water supply. Internal trade within Egypt was facilitated by the Nile River. Boats were used to transport goods from one region to another. Major trading centers developed along the river, where merchants exchanged goods from different parts of the country. The Egyptians traded agricultural products, manufactured goods, and raw materials. Barter was the primary form of exchange, but the Egyptians also used standardized weights and measures to facilitate trade. External trade was also important for the Egyptian economy. The Egyptians traded with other regions of the Near East, the Mediterranean, and Africa. They imported goods that were not available in Egypt, such as timber, metals, and precious stones. They exported goods that were produced in Egypt, such as grain, linen, and papyrus. Egypt's location at the crossroads of Africa and Asia made it a major trading hub. Egyptian merchants traveled to distant lands in search of valuable goods. They also established trading colonies in foreign countries. The Egyptians traded with the Phoenicians, the Minoans, the Greeks, and other peoples of the ancient world. The Egyptians used a variety of ships for trade, including sailboats and galleys. They navigated the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea, using the stars and the sun to guide their way. The Egyptians also used caravans to transport goods across the desert. The government played a significant role in the Egyptian economy. The pharaoh controlled the major resources of the country, including land, mines, and quarries. The government also regulated trade and collected taxes. The Egyptians developed a sophisticated system of weights and measures to facilitate trade. They also used standardized coinage, which was made of gold, silver, and copper. The Egyptian economy was closely tied to the country's social structure. The wealthy elite controlled the majority of the resources and dominated the trade networks. The farmers and laborers worked the land and produced the goods that were traded. The scribes and officials managed the economy and collected taxes. The Egyptian economy was relatively stable and prosperous for much of its history. The abundance of natural resources and the efficient management of the government allowed the Egyptians to maintain a high standard of living. The Egyptian economy also contributed to the country's cultural achievements. The wealth generated by trade and agriculture allowed the Egyptians to build magnificent temples, pyramids, and other monuments. Fact 3. The construction of the pyramids. The pyramids of Egypt, especially those at Giza, are among the most iconic and awe-inspiring structures in the world. Their sheer size, precise construction, and enduring presence have captivated and mystified people for millennia. Building these monumental tombs for the pharaohs was a massive undertaking that required incredible planning, organization, and engineering skills. The construction of a pyramid began with careful site selection. The location had to be on the west bank of the Nile, where the sun sets, symbolizing death and the afterlife, and on a relatively flat, stable surface. The Giza Plateau, with its solid bedrock, proved to be an ideal location. Once the site was chosen, architects and engineers would draw up detailed plans for the pyramid. These plans included precise measurements, angles, and specifications for the materials to be used. The pyramids were aligned with remarkable accuracy to the cardinal directions, suggesting a sophisticated understanding of astronomy and mathematics. The primary building material for the pyramids was limestone, which was quarried from nearby sites. Huge blocks of limestone, weighing several tons each, were cut and shaped with copper tools and then transported to the construction site. The transportation of these massive blocks was a major challenge. It is believed that the Egyptians used a combination of sleds, rollers, and ramps to move the stones. The sleds were pulled by teams of workers, and the rollers helped to reduce friction. Ramps were built to gradually raise the stones to higher levels of the pyramid. The exact methods used to lift the stones remain a subject of debate, but it is likely that a combination of levers, pulleys, and inclined planes was employed. The construction of a pyramid was a labor-intensive process that involved thousands of workers. These workers were not slaves, as is often portrayed in popular culture, but rather skilled laborers and craftsmen who were paid for their work. They lived in organized communities near the construction site and were provided with food, shelter, and medical care. The workforce was divided into teams, each responsible for a specific task, such as quarrying, transporting, or laying stones. The construction of the pyramid was carefully supervised by overseers and foremen, who ensured that the work was done according to the plans. The stones were laid with incredible precision, with very little mortar used between them. The joints were so tight that it is often difficult to insert a knife blade between the stones. As the pyramid rose in height, the ramps were extended and the lifting mechanisms were adjusted. The outer layer of the pyramid was covered with polished white limestone, which would have made it gleam brilliantly in the sun. The capstone, or pyramidion, was often made of gold or electrum, a gold-silver alloy, adding to the pyramid's splendor. The construction of a pyramid was not just a building project, it was a religious undertaking. The pyramid was seen as a stairway to heaven, allowing the pharaoh's soul to ascend to the afterlife. The interior of the pyramid contained chambers and passageways that were designed to protect the pharaoh's body and possessions. The walls of the chambers were often decorated with hieroglyphs and paintings depicting scenes from the pharaoh's life and the afterlife. The pyramids of Egypt are a testament to the ingenuity, skill, and dedication of the ancient Egyptians. They stand as enduring symbols of their civilization and their belief in the afterlife. Their construction required a vast amount of resources, labor, and expertise, but the Egyptians were willing to invest these resources to ensure the pharaoh's eternal life. The pyramids continue to inspire awe and wonder in people around the world, and they remain one of the most remarkable achievements of human civilization. The organization and logistics involved in building the pyramids were staggering. The Egyptians had to manage a large workforce, transport massive amounts of materials, and coordinate complex construction operations. This required a sophisticated system of administration, communication, and resource management. The success of the pyramid projects demonstrates the advanced organizational skills of the ancient Egyptians. Fact 4. Ancient Egyptian science and technology. Ancient Egyptians possessed a remarkable understanding of science and technology, which they applied to various aspects of their lives, from agriculture and construction to medicine and astronomy. Their innovations and advancements were crucial to the development and sustenance of their civilization. In mathematics, the Egyptians developed a practical system of arithmetic and geometry that was essential for surveying land, constructing buildings, and managing resources. They used a decimal system and understood basic mathematical operations, such as addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. They could calculate the area and volume of various shapes, which was necessary for building pyramids, temples, and other structures. The Rhine Mathematical Papyrus and the Moscow Mathematical Papyrus are important sources of information about Egyptian mathematics. These papyri contain examples of mathematical problems and their solutions, demonstrating the Egyptians' proficiency in arithmetic, geometry, and algebra. In astronomy, the Egyptians were skilled observers of the sky and developed a sophisticated understanding of the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. They used this knowledge to create a calendar based on the annual flooding of the Nile. The Egyptian calendar had 365 days, divided into 12 months of 30 days each, with an additional 5 days at the end of the year. The Egyptians also used astronomy for navigation and for religious purposes. They aligned their temples and pyramids with the cardinal directions and with certain stars. The positions of the stars were used to determine the timing of religious festivals and ceremonies. The Egyptians also believed that the stars were associated with the gods and goddesses. In medicine, the Egyptians had a surprisingly advanced knowledge of anatomy, physiology, and surgery. They used herbs and other natural remedies to treat illnesses. They also performed surgery and practiced dentistry. The Ebers Papyrus and the Edwin Smith Papyrus are important sources of information about Egyptian medicine. The Ebers Papyrus contains a collection of medical recipes and treatments, while the Edwin Smith Papyrus describes surgical procedures and anatomical observations. The Egyptians understood the importance of hygiene and sanitation. They bathed regularly, used soap, and had a system of toilets and sewers. They also practiced embalming, which required a detailed knowledge of human anatomy. In engineering and construction, the Egyptians were masters of building monumental structures. The pyramids are the most famous examples of their engineering prowess. The Egyptians used sophisticated techniques to quarry, transport, and lift heavy stones. They also developed methods for leveling the ground, aligning structures with the cardinal directions, and creating intricate internal chambers and passageways. The construction of the pyramids required a high level of organization, planning, and engineering skill. The Egyptians also built temples, obelisks, and irrigation systems. In agriculture, the Egyptians developed sophisticated irrigation systems to manage the waters of the Nile. They built canals, dikes, and reservoirs to control the flooding and to distribute water to their fields. They also used shadufs, which were hand-operated water lifts, to irrigate higher ground. The Egyptians cultivated a variety of crops, including wheat, barley, flax, and vegetables. In metallurgy, the Egyptians were skilled metalworkers. They used copper, bronze, and gold to create tools, weapons, jewelry, and other objects. They developed techniques for smelting, casting, and hammering metals. The Egyptians also mined turquoise and other gemstones. In transportation, the Egyptians used boats to travel along the Nile and to trade with other countries. They built various types of boats, including sailboats and rowboats. They also used chariots for transportation on land. The Egyptians were also skilled at making pottery, glass, and textiles. They used a variety of techniques to create beautiful and functional objects. The Egyptians were innovative and resourceful, and their contributions to science and technology had a lasting impact on the world. Their achievements in mathematics, astronomy, medicine, engineering, and other fields demonstrate their intellectual curiosity and their ability to solve practical problems. Fact 5. The wisdom literature of ancient Egypt. Ancient Egyptian wisdom literature provides a unique window into the ethical values, social norms, and philosophical reflections of this ancient civilization. These texts, written primarily during the Old and Middle Kingdoms, offer practical advice, moral guidance, and profound insights into the nature of life, death, and the proper way to conduct oneself in society. Unlike religious texts that focus on the relationship between humans and the gods, wisdom literature focuses on the relationships between people and the world around them. Wisdom literature was typically written by scribes and officials for the purpose of educating young men who were destined for careers in government or administration. These texts were intended to instill in them the virtues of wisdom, justice, moderation, and self-control. The instructions of Ptahhotep, dating back to the Old Kingdom, is one of the oldest and most famous examples of Egyptian wisdom literature. It consists of a series of maxims and proverbs attributed to Ptahhotep, a vizier who served during the reign of Pharaoh Azizi. The instructions of Ptahhotep covers a wide range of topics, including how to behave in the presence of superiors, how to treat subordinates, how to avoid conflict, and how to maintain a good reputation. The instructions of Amenemop, written during the New Kingdom, is another important example of Egyptian wisdom literature. It is similar to the Book of Proverbs in the Hebrew Bible and may have influenced its composition. The instructions of Amenemop emphasizes the importance of honesty, humility, and compassion. It also warns against greed, arrogance, and deceit. The Tale of the Eloquent Peasant is a fictional story that illustrates the importance of justice and the consequences of corruption. It tells the story of a peasant who is robbed of his goods by a corrupt official. The peasant travels to the capital city and pleads his case before the high steward, arguing eloquently for justice and fairness. The high steward is so impressed by the peasant's eloquence that he orders the corrupt official to be punished and the peasant's goods to be restored. The dispute between a man and his Ba is a philosophical dialogue that explores the meaning of life and the nature of death. It tells the story of a man who is weary of life and contemplates suicide. He argues with his Ba, the part of his soul that can travel between the world of the living and the world of the dead, about whether it is better to live or to die. The dialogue is complex and thought-provoking, and it offers no easy answers. Egyptian wisdom literature provides valuable insights into the values and beliefs of ancient Egyptian society. It reveals a culture that placed a high premium on wisdom, justice, and social harmony. It also shows that the Egyptians were deeply concerned with the meaning of life and the nature of death. The enduring appeal of Egyptian wisdom literature is a testament to its timeless relevance. The advice and insights contained in these texts are still applicable today, offering guidance for living a good and meaningful life. The focus on ethical behavior and social responsibility continues to resonate with readers from all cultures and backgrounds. Fact 6. Ancient Egyptian pets and animal companions. Ancient Egyptians had a deep and multifaceted relationship with animals, viewing them not only as sources of food and labor, but also as companions, symbols of divinity, and embodiments of powerful forces. Pets played a significant role in Egyptian society, providing companionship, protection, and even spiritual benefits. The types of animals kept as pets and the ways in which they were treated reveal much about the Egyptians' values, beliefs, and daily lives. Cats were among the most revered animals in ancient Egypt. They were associated with the goddess Batet, the protector of the home, fertility, and childbirth. Cats were believed to bring good luck and to protect households from vermin and evil spirits. They were often depicted in art and were even mummified after death. Killing a cat, even accidentally, was considered a serious crime punishable by death. Dogs were also popular pets in ancient Egypt. They were used for hunting, guarding, and companionship. Different breeds of dogs were kept, including greyhounds, mastiffs, and basenjis. Dogs were often depicted in art alongside their owners and were sometimes buried with them. Monkeys, particularly baboons, were kept as pets by the wealthy elite. They were often trained to perform tricks and were considered to be status symbols. Monkeys were associated with the god Thoth, the patron of scribes and knowledge. Birds such as falcons, hawks, and ibises were also kept as pets. They were often associated with specific deities and were used for hunting. Falcons were associated with the god Horus, the sky god and protector of the pharaoh. Fish were sometimes kept in ponds or tanks as ornamental pets. Fish were associated with the god Osiris, the god of the afterlife. Other animals that were kept as pets in ancient Egypt included gazelles, hedgehogs, and even crocodiles. The treatment of pets in ancient Egypt varied depending on the type of animal and the social status of the owner. Cats were generally treated with great respect and affection. They were often fed special diets and allowed to sleep in the owner's bed. Dogs were also well cared for, but they were often used for work and were not always treated as equals. The Egyptians believed that animals had souls and that they could accompany their owners into the afterlife. Pets were sometimes mummified and buried with their owners, providing them with companionship and protection in the next world. The presence of pets in ancient Egyptian art and literature provides valuable insights into the relationship between humans and animals in this ancient civilization. These sources reveal that pets were not just possessions. They were valued members of the family, providing companionship, protection, and spiritual benefits. The ancient Egyptians' love and respect for animals is a testament to their deep connection with the natural world. Fact 7. The Mysteries of Queen Nefertiti. Queen Nefertiti, the great royal wife of Pharaoh Akhenaten, is one of the most iconic and enigmatic figures in ancient Egyptian history. Her name, which means the beautiful one has come forth, perfectly reflects her renowned beauty, immortalized in the famous bust discovered in Amarna in 1912. However, beyond her stunning appearance, much about Nefertiti's life, role, and ultimate fate remains shrouded in mystery, fueling endless speculation and captivating the imaginations of Egyptologists and the public alike. Nefertiti's origins are uncertain. While some theories suggest she was a foreign princess, possibly from Mitanni, the prevailing view is that she was of Egyptian noble birth. She rose to prominence during Akhenaten's reign and became his chief consort, playing a significant role in his religious revolution. Nefertiti was not just a beautiful wife, she was a powerful figure in her own right. She is frequently depicted alongside Akhenaten in official scenes, participating in religious ceremonies, and even smiting enemies, a role typically reserved for the pharaoh. This suggests that she held considerable political and religious authority. The Amarna period art often portrays Nefertiti with Akhenaten and their daughters, basking in the rays of the Aten. These scenes emphasize the importance of the royal family and Nefertiti's role as a mother and a symbol of royal legitimacy. One of the biggest mysteries surrounding Nefertiti is her disappearance from historical records. Around the 12th year of Akhenaten's reign, Nefertiti's name begins to disappear from official inscriptions and monuments. The reason for her disappearance is unknown. Some theories suggest that she fell out of favor with Akhenaten, possibly due to a political disagreement or a failure to produce a male heir. Others believe that she died, although no evidence of her death has ever been found. A more intriguing theory suggests that Nefertiti may have assumed a new role in the royal court. Some scholars believe that she may have become a co-regent with Akhenaten, ruling under the name Smenkhare. This theory is based on the discovery of inscriptions that refer to a pharaoh named Smenkhare, who ruled briefly during the Amarna period. The identity of Smenkhare is uncertain, but some believe that it was actually Nefertiti disguised as a male pharaoh. The location of Nefertiti's tomb is also unknown. Despite numerous searches, her tomb has never been found. Some scholars believe that her tomb may be located somewhere in the Valley of the Kings, but others believe that it may be located in Amarna or in another unknown location. In recent years, there has been speculation that Nefertiti's tomb may be hidden behind the walls of Tutankhamun's tomb in the Valley of the Kings. This theory is based on radar scans that revealed anomalies in the walls of Tutankhamun's tomb. However, further investigation has failed to confirm the presence of hidden chambers. Despite the many mysteries surrounding her life and death, Nefertiti remains one of the most fascinating and beloved figures in ancient Egyptian history. Her beauty, her power, and her enigmatic fate continue to captivate us today. The ongoing search for her tomb and the attempts to unravel the mysteries of her life ensure that she will remain a subject of fascination for generations to come. The lack of definitive answers only adds to her allure. Fact 8. The Amarna period, Akhenaten's religious revolution. The Amarna period, a relatively short but incredibly significant chapter in ancient Egyptian history, revolves around the reign of Pharaoh Akhenaten, originally Amenhotep IV, in the 14th century BC. What makes this period so fascinating is Akhenaten's radical departure from traditional Egyptian religious practices and his attempt to establish a monotheistic religion centered on the worship of Aten, the sun disk. This wasn't just a minor tweak to existing beliefs. It was a complete overhaul of the Egyptian worldview, with profound consequences for art, politics, and society. Prior to Akhenaten, Egyptian religion was a complex polytheistic system with a vast pantheon of gods and goddesses, each with their own temples, priests and rituals. Ammonius, the god of Thebes, had risen to prominence as the king of the gods, and his priesthood wielded considerable power and influence. Akhenaten, however, began to challenge this established order early in his reign. He gradually elevated the Aten, a relatively minor solar deity, to the position of supreme god. He emphasized the Aten's role as the source of all life and light, portraying him as a universal creator rather than a localized Egyptian deity. Around the 5th year of his reign, Akhenaten took the unprecedented step of officially abandoning the worship of all other gods except for the Aten. He closed the temples dedicated to the traditional deities, confiscated their wealth, and persecuted their priests. This was a direct assault on the established religious and political order and a bold attempt to centralize power in the hands of the pharaoh. To further solidify his religious revolution, Akhenaten moved the capital of Egypt from Thebes to a newly built city called Akhetaten, Horizon of the Aten, located in Middle Egypt. This city, now known as Amarna, became the center of the Aten's worship and a showcase for Akhenaten's new artistic and architectural style. The art of the Amarna period is distinctive and easily recognizable. It breaks away from the rigid conventions of traditional Egyptian art and embraces a more naturalistic and expressive style. Akhenaten and his family are often depicted with elongated features, such as long faces, thin necks, and wide hips. These depictions may reflect Akhenaten's actual physical appearance, or they may be stylized representations intended to convey his unique status as the son of the Aten. The art of the Amarna period also emphasizes the importance of the royal family. Akhenaten, his wife Nefertiti, and their daughters are frequently depicted together, basking in the rays of the Aten. These scenes convey a sense of intimacy and domesticity that is rare in traditional Egyptian art. Akhenaten's religious reforms were met with resistance from the traditional priesthood and from many Egyptians who were deeply attached to their ancestral gods. The persecution of the old gods caused widespread resentment and unrest. Akhenaten's reign was also marked by political instability and economic hardship. The abandonment of Thebes as the capital city disrupted the traditional administrative structures and led to a decline in trade and commerce. After Akhenaten's death, his religious reforms were quickly reversed. His successor, Tutankhaten, later Tutankhamun, restored the worship of the traditional gods and moved the capital back to Thebes. The city of Akhetaten was abandoned, and the monuments of Akhenaten were dismantled or destroyed. The Amarna period was effectively erased from Egyptian history. Despite its short duration and ultimate failure, the Amarna period remains a fascinating and important episode in Egyptian history. Akhenaten's attempt to establish a monotheistic religion was a bold and unprecedented experiment that challenged the very foundations of Egyptian society. The art of the Amarna period is unique and beautiful and provides valuable insights into the religious and cultural changes of the time. The Amarna period also raises important questions about the nature of religious belief, the role of the pharaoh, and the relationship between art and power. Fact 9. The Uset collar: power, protection, and adornment. The Uset collar, a broad and elaborate necklace worn by both men and women in ancient Egypt, was more than just a piece of jewelry. It served as a powerful symbol of status, protection, and religious affiliation. The design, materials, and adornments of the Yusek collar conveyed important information about the wearer's social standing, role in society, and relationship with the gods. Understanding the Yusek collar provides valuable insights into Egyptian fashion, symbolism, and social hierarchy. The Yusek collar was typically made of multiple strands of beads, arranged in a semicircular or crescent shape. The beads were made of a variety of materials, including faience, glass, gemstones, and precious metals. The Yusek collar was often decorated with pendants, amulets, and other ornaments that added to its symbolic value. The Yusek collar was worn by people of all social classes, but the quality and materials used in its construction varied, depending on the wearer's status. The pharaoh and other members of the royal family wore Yusek collars made of gold and precious gemstones. These collars were often adorned with images of gods and goddesses, as well as symbols of royal power. High-ranking officials and priests also wore elaborate Yusek collars, made of faience, glass, and semi-precious stones. These collars were often decorated with religious symbols and inscriptions. Commoners wore simpler Yusek collars, made of faience and other less expensive materials. These collars were often decorated with geometric patterns and other simple designs. The Yusek collar was not only a symbol of status, but also a form of protection. The Egyptians believed that the collar had magical properties and could ward off evil spirits and protect the wearer from harm. Amulets and pendants were often attached to the Yusek collar to enhance its protective powers. The Yusek collar was also associated with religious rituals and ceremonies. It was often worn by priests and priestesses during religious processions and festivals. The collar was believed to connect the wearer with the divine realm and to channel the power of the gods. The Yusek collar is a recurring motif in ancient Egyptian art. It is depicted on statues, reliefs, and tomb paintings, providing valuable information about its design, construction, and use. The Yusek collar is a reminder of the Egyptians' love of adornment and their belief in the power of symbols. It is a testament to their skill as craftsmen and their deep connection with the divine realm. The enduring appeal of the Yusek collar is evident in its continued influence on modern fashion and jewelry design. Fact 10. The Curse of the Pharaohs. The Curse of the Pharaohs is a popular belief that disturbing the mummy of an ancient Egyptian, especially a pharaoh, can result in bad luck, illness, or even death for those involved. This idea, fueled by sensationalized media coverage and fictional portrayals, gained significant traction following the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922. While there's no scientific basis for such a curse, the story's origins and the circumstances surrounding the tomb's opening are undeniably intriguing. The opening of Tutankhamun's tomb by Howard Carter and Lord Carnarvon was a major archaeological event, attracting worldwide attention. Shortly after the tomb was opened, Lord Carnarvon died of pneumonia, which was then exacerbated by an infected mosquito bite. This seemingly coincidental death sparked rumors of a curse, which were amplified by newspaper reports that painted a dramatic picture of ancient forces being unleashed. Author Marie Corelli fueled the fire with a letter published in a magazine, suggesting that terrible retribution would follow the violation of the pharaoh's tomb. Other deaths and misfortunes associated with individuals connected to the excavation were subsequently attributed to the curse, solidifying its place in popular culture. However, a closer examination of the facts reveals a more nuanced picture. Many people involved in the excavation lived long and healthy lives. Howard Carter, for example, lived for another 17 years after the tomb's opening. Moreover, scientific explanations can account for some of the reported illnesses and deaths. Ancient tombs can contain harmful bacteria and fungi that could cause respiratory problems or other health issues. In the case of Lord Carnarvon, his weakened immune system due to pre-existing health conditions likely contributed to his death from pneumonia. The curse is often attributed to vengeful spirits or angered gods seeking retribution for the disturbance of the pharaoh's resting place. The ancient Egyptians believed in the importance of preserving the body for the afterlife, and they took great care to protect the tombs of their pharaohs from robbers and desecration. However, there is no evidence that they believed in a specific curse that would befall anyone who disturbed a tomb for legitimate archaeological purposes. The idea of a curse is more likely a modern invention, inspired by ancient Egyptian beliefs about the afterlife, combined with a healthy dose of superstition and sensationalism. The media played a significant role in popularizing the curse, often exaggerating the facts and creating a narrative that was more exciting than the reality. The curse also provided a convenient explanation for unexplained events, appealing to people's sense of mystery and the unknown. Regardless of its origins, the Curse of the Pharaohs has become a cultural phenomenon, appearing in numerous books, movies, and television shows. It has also contributed to the romanticized view of ancient Egypt as a land of mystery, magic, and danger. While the Curse of the Pharaohs is undoubtedly a myth, it highlights the enduring fascination that ancient Egypt holds for people around the world. It also serves as a reminder of the importance of respecting cultural heritage and the need to approach archaeological discoveries with sensitivity and responsibility. The belief in the curse also underscores the power of suggestion and the human tendency to seek patterns and explanations, even when none exist. Fact 11. Ancient Egyptian art and architecture. Ancient Egyptian art and architecture are among the most recognizable and influential in the world. Characterized by their grandeur, symbolism, and enduring quality, they reflect the Egyptians' religious beliefs, social structure, and technological prowess. Egyptian art served primarily religious and political purposes. It was used to honor the gods, commemorate the pharaohs, and depict scenes from the afterlife. Art was also used to communicate ideas and beliefs to the public. Egyptian art is characterized by its formality, stylized figures, and vibrant colors. The human figure was typically depicted in a composite pose, with the head in profile, the shoulders frontal, and the legs in profile. This pose was used to convey power and authority. Egyptian art also made extensive use of hieroglyphs, which were used to identify figures and to tell stories. Egyptian architecture is characterized by its massive scale, symmetrical design, and use of durable materials. The pyramids are the most famous examples of Egyptian architecture. They were built as tombs for the pharaohs and were designed to protect their bodies and possessions in the afterlife. The pyramids were built with great precision and were aligned with the cardinal directions. The Egyptians also built temples, obelisks, and palaces. Temples were built to honor the gods and goddesses. They were often decorated with elaborate carvings and paintings. Obelisks were tall, slender monuments that were erected in pairs at the entrances to temples. Palaces were the residences of the pharaohs and their families. They were typically large and luxurious, with gardens, pools, and courtyards. Egyptian art and architecture were closely linked to the country's religious beliefs. The Egyptians believed that the afterlife was a continuation of earthly life and that it was important to prepare for it. Art and architecture were used to ensure that the pharaohs would have a comfortable and prosperous afterlife. The Egyptians used a variety of materials in their art and architecture, including stone, wood, and metal. Stone was the most common material, as it was durable and readily available. Limestone, sandstone, and granite were used to build pyramids, temples, and other structures. Wood was used for furniture, coffins, and other objects. Metal was used for tools, weapons, jewelry, and statues. The Egyptians used a variety of techniques to create their art and architecture. They carved stone with copper tools and painted walls with vibrant colors. They also used molds to create pottery and cast metal. Egyptian art and architecture have had a lasting impact on the world. Their influence can be seen in the art and architecture of many other cultures. The pyramids, temples, and obelisks continue to inspire awe and wonder in people around the world. The consistent style of Egyptian art over thousands of years is remarkable. This consistency reflects the stability of Egyptian society and the importance of tradition. The use of symbolism was prevalent in Egyptian art. Animals, colors, and objects were often used to represent specific ideas or concepts. For example, the scarab beetle symbolized rebirth, the color blue symbolized the Nile, and the ink symbolized life. The Egyptians also used a system of proportions to create harmonious and balanced compositions. These proportions were based on mathematical principles and were believed to reflect the divine order of the universe. The size of figures in Egyptian art often reflected their social status. The pharaoh was typically depicted as the largest figure, while servants and other lower-ranking individuals were depicted as smaller figures. The use of hieroglyphs in Egyptian art was not only decorative but also informative. Hieroglyphs could be used to identify figures, to tell stories, and to convey religious or political messages. The Egyptians were skilled at creating illusions of depth and perspective in their art, even though they did not fully understand the principles of linear perspective. They used techniques such as overlapping figures and varying the size of objects to create a sense of space. The Egyptians were also masters of creating intricate and detailed carvings. They were able to carve stone with incredible precision, creating lifelike representations of humans, animals, and objects. Fact 12. The Fayum Oasis and its portrait mummies. The Fayum Oasis, a fertile depression located southwest of the Nile Delta, played a significant role in ancient Egyptian history and culture. Its strategic location and abundant resources made it an important agricultural center and a popular destination for settlement and trade. During the Ptolemaic and Roman periods, the Fayum experienced a period of prosperity and cultural exchange, resulting in the unique tradition of Fayum portrait mummies. These mummies, adorned with realistic portraits of the deceased, offer a fascinating glimpse into the lives and beliefs of the people who lived in the Fayum during this time. The Fayum Oasis was initially developed during the Middle Kingdom, when the pharaohs invested heavily in irrigation projects to reclaim land for agriculture. The construction of the Bar Yusuf Canal, which connected the Nile to the Fayum Depression, transformed the oasis into a thriving agricultural region. The Fayum produced a variety of crops, including wheat, barley, flax, and grapes. It also became a center for fishing and hunting. During the Ptolemaic period, which began in the 4th century BCE after Alexander the Great conquered Egypt, the Fayum became a major center of Greek settlement. The Ptolemaic kings established new cities and villages in the Fayum and encouraged Greek immigrants to settle there. The Greeks brought their own language, culture, and customs to the Fayum, which blended with the existing Egyptian traditions. The Fayum portrait mummies are a unique product of this cultural fusion. These mummies were made in the traditional Egyptian style, with the body being mummified and wrapped in linen bandages. However, instead of a traditional mummy mask, the Fayum portrait mummies were adorned with a realistic portrait of the deceased, painted on a wooden panel or linen shroud. The portraits were typically painted in encaustic, a technique that uses hot wax as a binder for the pigments. Encaustic paintings are known for their vibrant colors and their durability. The portraits depict the deceased with remarkable realism, capturing their individual features, hairstyles, and clothing. They provide valuable insights into the appearance and fashion of the people who lived in the Fayum during the Ptolemaic and Roman periods. The Fayum portraits also reveal the cultural influences that shaped the lives of the people who lived in the Fayum. The portraits often depict individuals wearing Greek clothing and hairstyles, but they also incorporate Egyptian religious symbols and motifs. The Fayum portrait mummies are a testament to the cultural diversity and the artistic achievements of the Fayum Oasis during the Ptolemaic and Roman periods. They offer a unique glimpse into the lives of the people who lived in this region and provide valuable insights into the cultural exchange that took place between Egypt and the Greek world. The discovery of the Fayum portrait mummies has greatly enhanced our understanding of this fascinating period of Egyptian history. The portraits continue to fascinate us with their realism, their beauty, and their ability to connect us with the lives of people who lived thousands of years ago. Fact 13. The strike at Deir el-Medina, labor unrest in ancient Egypt. While often perceived as a highly structured and rigidly controlled society, ancient Egypt experienced instances of social unrest, and the strike at Deir el-Medina provides a compelling example of labor activism and the challenges faced by workers in the Pharaonic era. This documented event, dating back to the reign of Ramses III in the 20th dynasty c. 1159 BCE, offers a rare glimpse into the lives and grievances of the skilled artisans and craftsmen who built and decorated the royal tombs in the Valley of the Kings. Deir el-Medina was a walled village located on the west bank of the Nile, near Thebes, modern-day Luxor. It was home to a community of skilled workers who were responsible for constructing and decorating the tombs of the pharaohs and other members of the royal family. These workers were highly valued and were provided with food, housing, and other necessities by the state. However, They were also subject to strict rules and regulations, and their lives were often difficult and demanding. In the 29th year of Ramses III's reign, the workers at Deir el-Medina went on strike due to a delay in the delivery of their rations. The workers were dependent on these rations for their survival, and the delay caused widespread hunger and hardship. The strike began peacefully, with the workers simply refusing to work. However, as the delay continued, the workers became more desperate and began to protest more actively. They marched to the nearby Ramesseum, the mortuary temple of Ramses II, and staged a sit-in, demanding that their rations be delivered. The strike at Deir el-Medina was a remarkable event for several reasons. It was one of the earliest documented examples of labor unrest in history. It demonstrated the power of collective action and the willingness of workers to stand up for their rights. It also revealed the vulnerabilities of the Egyptian state and its dependence on the labor of skilled workers. The strike at Deir el-Medina was eventually resolved, but not without some concessions from the government. The workers were eventually provided with their rations, and the officials responsible for the delay were punished. The strike had a lasting impact on Egyptian society, demonstrating the potential for social unrest and the need for the government to address the grievances of its workers. The strike at Deir el-Medina is a reminder that even in the most seemingly stable and hierarchical societies, there is always the potential for social change. It is a testament to the courage and determination of ordinary people to fight for their rights and to improve their lives. The well-documented nature of this strike, thanks to the ostraca and papyri left behind, offers a valuable historical record of a moment when the established order was challenged from below. Fact 14. The ancient Egyptian sense of humor. While often portrayed as a serious and stoic civilization focused on death and the afterlife, ancient Egyptians also possessed a well-developed sense of humor, evident in their art, literature, and everyday objects. This humor ranged from slapstick and wordplay to satire and social commentary, offering a refreshing perspective on their culture and values. Uncovering these humorous elements reveals a more human and relatable side to the ancient Egyptians. Egyptian humor often took the form of satire, poking fun at social norms, political figures, and even the gods themselves. Satirical texts and illustrations mocked the pretensions of the wealthy, the incompetence of officials, and the foibles of human nature. These humorous portrayals served as a form of social commentary, challenging authority and reinforcing social values. Wordplay was another common form of Egyptian humor. The Egyptians were fascinated by language, and they often used puns, riddles, and double entendres to create humorous effects. These linguistic games required a sophisticated understanding of the Egyptian language and culture. Slapstick and physical comedy were also popular forms of entertainment. Scenes of everyday life, such as farmers tending their fields or craftsmen working in their workshops, were often depicted with humorous exaggeration and absurdity. These comical portrayals provided a light-hearted escape from the daily grind. Even religious texts and rituals contained elements of humor. The Egyptians often used humor to humanize their gods and to make them more relatable to the common people. The Book of the Dead, for example, contains spells that are intended to trick or outsmart the demons of the underworld. Examples of Egyptian humor can be found in a variety of sources, including tomb paintings, papyrus texts, and ostraca, fragments of pottery or limestone used for writing practice. Tomb paintings often depict scenes of animals behaving in human-like ways, such as cats serving mice or geese playing musical instruments. These comical portrayals serve to entertain the deceased and to provide them with a sense of amusement in the afterlife. Papyrus texts contain humorous stories, poems, and dialogues that poke fun at various aspects of Egyptian society. The contendings of Horus and Seth, for example, is a humorous tale that tells the story of the struggle between the two gods for the throne of Egypt. Ostraca often contain humorous sketches and cartoons that provide a glimpse into the everyday lives of ordinary Egyptians. These drawings depict scenes of people dancing, playing music, and engaging in other forms of amusement. The ancient Egyptian sense of humor is a reminder that they were not just a civilization obsessed with death and the afterlife. They were also a people who enjoyed life and who found humor in the everyday world. The discovery of these humorous elements in Egyptian art and literature provides a more complete and nuanced understanding of their culture and values. Fact 15. The role of pharaohs in ancient Egypt. The pharaohs were the absolute rulers of ancient Egypt, holding immense power and considered to be divine beings. Their role encompassed religious, political, and military leadership, making them the central figure in Egyptian society. They were seen as intermediaries between the gods and the people, responsible for maintaining ma'at, order and balance, in the world. The pharaoh's religious role was paramount. They were the high priests of all the temples in Egypt and were responsible for performing rituals and offerings to the gods. They believed that their actions directly influenced the well-being of the country and the success of the harvests. The pharaoh's coronation was a sacred event, symbolizing their divine appointment and their assumption of power. During the coronation ceremony, the pharaoh was ritually purified, crowned, and invested with the symbols of royal authority, such as the crook and flail. The pharaoh was also responsible for building and maintaining temples dedicated to the gods. These temples were not only places of worship, but also centers of learning, administration, and economic activity. The pharaohs commissioned elaborate artwork and sculptures to adorn the temples, showcasing their devotion to the gods and their power. In addition to their religious duties, the pharaohs were also the political leaders of Egypt. They were responsible for making laws, administering justice, and collecting taxes. The pharaoh's word was law, and their decisions were final. They appointed officials to oversee various aspects of government, such as agriculture, trade, and defense. The pharaohs also controlled the vast resources of Egypt, including land, mines, and quarries. They used these resources to fund their building projects, maintain their armies, and support the population. The pharaoh's power was absolute, but they were also expected to rule justly and wisely. They were seen as the protectors of the people and were responsible for ensuring their well-being. The pharaohs also played a crucial role in the military defense of Egypt. They were the commanders-in-chief of the army and were responsible for protecting the country from foreign invaders. The pharaohs led their armies into battle, often personally participating in the fighting. They built fortresses and fortifications to defend Egypt's borders and maintained a strong military presence to deter potential enemies. The pharaohs were not only rulers, but also symbols of Egyptian identity and culture. They were depicted in art and literature as powerful, wise, and just leaders. Their images adorned temples, tombs, and public monuments, reinforcing their authority and divine status. The pharaohs were also patrons of the arts and sciences. They supported artists, writers, and scholars, encouraging them to create works that celebrated Egyptian culture and achievements. The legacy of the pharaohs is evident in the magnificent monuments they left behind, such as the pyramids, temples, and obelisks. These structures stand as enduring symbols of their power, wealth, and ambition. The pharaohs shaped the course of Egyptian history for over 3,000 years, leaving an indelible mark on the world. Their role as divine rulers, political leaders, and military commanders made them the central figures in Egyptian society. Their legacy continues to inspire awe and fascination in people around the world. The concept of the pharaoh as a god-king was deeply ingrained in Egyptian culture. It provided a sense of stability and continuity, as the pharaoh was seen as the embodiment of the nation's collective identity. The pharaoh's power was reinforced by elaborate rituals, ceremonies, and propaganda, which emphasized their divine status and their ability to maintain order and prosperity. The pharaoh's court was a center of power and influence, attracting ambitious officials, priests, and military leaders. These individuals sought to gain the pharaoh's favor and advance their own careers. The court was also a center of intrigue and competition, as different factions vied for power and influence. Fact 16. Ancient Egyptian Writing and Hieroglyphs. Ancient Egyptian writing is one of the oldest and most fascinating writing systems in the world. It developed over thousands of years, evolving from simple pictograms to a complex system of hieroglyphs, hieratic, and demotic scripts. The ability to read and write was highly valued in ancient Egypt, and scribes held a privileged position in society. The earliest forms of Egyptian writing date back to the pre-dynastic period, c. 3200 BC. These early writings consisted of simple pictograms, which were pictures that represented objects or ideas. Over time, these pictograms evolved into more stylized symbols, which could also represent sounds. The most well-known form of Egyptian writing is hieroglyphs. Hieroglyphs were a formal, monumental script that was used for religious texts, inscriptions on tombs and temples, and other important documents. Hieroglyphs were written in rows or columns and could be read from left to right to left, or top to bottom. The direction in which the hieroglyphs were read was indicated by the direction in which the animal and human figures faced. Hieroglyphs were not simply pictures. They were a complex system of symbols that represented a combination of sounds, ideas, and objects. Some hieroglyphs represented single sounds, similar to letters in the alphabet. These are called phonograms. Other hieroglyphs represented entire words or concepts. These are called ideograms or logograms. Many hieroglyphs had multiple meanings, depending on the context in which they were used. Understanding the meaning of a hieroglyph often required a deep knowledge of Egyptian language and culture. The writing system also included determinatives, which were signs that helped to clarify the meaning of a word. Determinatives were not pronounced, but they indicated the general category to which a word belonged. For example, a determinative of a walking pair of legs might indicate that the word referred to an action related to movement. Because the script included both phonograms and ideograms, the same word might be written many different ways. Because hieroglyphs were complex and time-consuming to write, the Egyptians also developed a simplified cursive script called hieratic. Hieratic was used for everyday writing, such as letters, documents, and literary texts. Hieratic was written on papyrus or ostraca, flakes of limestone, using a reed pen and ink. Hieratic was more cursive than hieroglyphs, and the symbols were often abbreviated or simplified. Hieratic was written from right to left in horizontal lines. Over time, hieratic evolved into an even more simplified script called demotic. Demotic was used for everyday writing and was even more cursive and abbreviated than hieratic. Demotic was the script that was most commonly used in Egypt during the Ptolemaic and Roman periods. The Rosetta Stone was a key to deciphering Egyptian hieroglyphs. The Rosetta Stone was discovered in 1799 during Napoleon's Egyptian campaign. It contained the same text written in 3 different scripts: hieroglyphs, Demotic, and Greek. By comparing the Greek text with the hieroglyphic and Demotic texts, scholars were able to decipher the meaning of the hieroglyphs. Jean-François Champollion, a French scholar, is credited with deciphering the hieroglyphs in 1822. Champollion's work revolutionized our understanding of ancient Egyptian language and culture. Without the Rosetta Stone and Champollion's work, we would know very little about the history, religion, and literature of ancient Egypt. The ability to read and write was highly valued in ancient Egypt. Scribes were responsible for recording information, writing documents, and preserving knowledge. They were highly respected members of society and often held important positions in the government or the priesthood. Scribes underwent rigorous training to learn the complex writing system. They studied for many years, memorizing hundreds of hieroglyphs and learning the rules of grammar and composition. The invention of writing had a profound impact on ancient Egyptian society. It allowed the Egyptians to record their history, preserve their knowledge, and communicate with each other over long distances. Writing played a crucial role in the development of Egyptian civilization and its lasting legacy. The Egyptians used a variety of materials for writing, including papyrus, ostraca, and wooden tablets. Papyrus was made from the papyrus plant, which grew along the banks of the Nile. The papyrus plant was cut into strips, which were then laid out in 2 layers, one vertical and one horizontal. The layers were then pressed together and dried to form a sheet of papyrus. Ostraca were flakes of limestone that were used for writing practice or for short notes. Wooden tablets were covered with a layer of wax, which could be written on with a stylus. Fact 17. The canopic jars, guardians of the internal organs. In the elaborate process of mummification in ancient Egypt, the removal and preservation of the internal organs played a crucial role in ensuring the deceased's successful journey to the afterlife. These organs, considered essential for the individual's identity and well-being, were carefully placed in canopic jars, each protected by a specific deity and representing a different aspect of the deceased being. Understanding the purpose and symbolism of the canopic jars provides valuable insights into Egyptian beliefs about the body, the soul, and the afterlife. Canopic jars were typically made of pottery, limestone, or alabaster. They were often decorated with images of the four sons of Horus, who were believed to protect the organs inside. The four sons of Horus were Imsidi, Hapi, Duamutef, and Kabisanouf. Imsidi, who had a human head, protected the liver. Hapi, who had a baboon head, protected the lungs. Duamutef, who had a jackal head, protected the stomach. Kabisanouf, who had a falcon head, protected the intestines. The heart was not placed in a canopic jar because it was believed to be the seat of intelligence and emotion and was left inside the body. The brain was also not placed in a canopic jar because it was considered to be unimportant and was often discarded. The canopic jars were placed in a canopic chest, which was then placed in the tomb along with the mummy. The canopic chest was often decorated with images of the four sons of Horus and other religious symbols. The Egyptians believed that the canopic jars were essential for the deceased's survival in the afterlife. The organs contained in the jars would be needed for the deceased to function in the next world. The canopic jars also provided a safe haven for the organs, protecting them from harm and decay. The design and decoration of the canopic jars evolved over time. During the Old Kingdom, the jars had plain lids with no decoration. During the Middle Kingdom, the lids were often shaped like human heads. During the New Kingdom, the lids were shaped like the heads of the four sons of Horus. The canopic jars are a reminder of the Egyptians' deep respect for the human body and their belief in the importance of preserving it for the afterlife. They are a testament to their skill as craftsmen and their sophisticated understanding of anatomy and physiology. The canopic jars also highlight the Egyptians' belief in the power of magic and the importance of religious rituals in ensuring a successful transition to the next world. The canopic jars are an enduring symbol of ancient Egyptian funerary practices and a valuable source of information about their beliefs about death and the afterlife. Fact 18. The Dendera light bulb. Ancient technology or misinterpreted symbolism. The Dendera light bulb is a controversial and intriguing image found in the Hathor Temple at Dendera, Egypt. This image, which resembles a modern-day light bulb, has sparked numerous debates and theories, with some suggesting that it is evidence of advanced ancient technology or even contact with extraterrestrial civilizations. While the mainstream Egyptological view dismisses this interpretation, the Dendera light bulb continues to fascinate those interested in alternative history and the mysteries of the ancient world. The Hathor Temple at Dendera is a well-preserved temple complex dedicated to the goddess Hathor, the goddess of love, beauty, music, and motherhood. The temple was built during the Ptolemaic period, 305 to 30 BCE, but it incorporates elements from earlier periods. The Dendera light bulb is located in the crypt of the temple, which is decorated with a series of reliefs depicting various religious scenes. The image in question shows a long, oval-shaped object with a filament inside, connected to a cable or cord. The object is supported by a jed pillar, a symbol of stability and endurance. Proponents of the light bulb theory argue that the image represents an ancient electric light bulb, suggesting that the Egyptians possessed a sophisticated understanding of electricity. They point to the filament-like structure inside the bulb and the cable-like connection as evidence of this advanced technology. They also suggest that the Jed pillar served as a power source for the light bulb. However, the mainstream Egyptological view rejects this interpretation, arguing that the image is a symbolic representation of the Egyptian creation myth. According to this interpretation, the oval-shaped object represents the womb of Nut, the sky goddess, from which the sun god Re is born each morning. The filament-like structure inside the oval represents the serpent, a symbol of life and rebirth. The Jed pillar represents the backbone of Osiris, the god of the afterlife, and symbolizes stability and resurrection. The Egyptological interpretation is supported by the fact that similar images can be found in other Egyptian temples and tombs, all of which are interpreted as symbolic representations of the creation myth. There is also no evidence of any electrical technology in ancient Egypt. The Egyptians did not have the knowledge or the resources to create electric light bulbs. The Dendra light bulb remains a controversial and enigmatic image. While the mainstream Egyptological view offers a plausible explanation for its meaning, the image continues to fascinate those interested in alternative history and the mysteries of the ancient world. The debate over the Dendra light bulb highlights the challenges of interpreting ancient symbols and the importance of considering multiple perspectives. It also serves as a reminder that even in well-studied civilizations like ancient Egypt, there are still mysteries waiting to be unraveled. Fact 19. The Amduat. Journey through the underworld with R.A. The Amduat, that which is in the underworld, is a significant ancient Egyptian funerary text that details the nocturnal journey of the sun god Ra through the underworld, from sunset to sunrise. This complex and symbolic text, found primarily in royal tombs of the New Kingdom, c. 1550 to 1070 BCE, provides a detailed map of the underworld, outlining the challenges, dangers, and transformations that Ra undergoes each night before being reborn in the morning. The Amduat offers profound insights into Egyptian beliefs about death, rebirth, and the cyclical nature of time. The Amduat is divided into 12 hours, each representing a different stage of Ra's journey through the underworld. The text describes the various deities, demons, and creatures that Ra encounters in each hour, as well as the spells and rituals that he uses to overcome them. The Amduat is not just a narrative. It is also a guide for the deceased pharaoh, who is believed to accompany Ra on his nightly journey. By reciting the spells and rituals contained in the Amduat, the pharaoh could ensure his own safe passage through the underworld and his eventual rebirth in the afterlife. The Amduat is often depicted in elaborate illustrations that adorn the walls of royal tombs. These illustrations provide a visual representation of the underworld, showing the various deities, demons, and landscapes that Ra encounters on his journey. The illustrations also depict the pharaoh accompanying Ra, demonstrating his participation in the sun god's nightly voyage. The Amduat is a complex and symbolic text that requires careful study and interpretation. The meanings of the various deities, demons, and landscapes are often obscure and multifaceted. However, by understanding the symbolism of the Amduat, we can gain a deeper appreciation for the Egyptians' beliefs about death, rebirth, and the cyclical nature of time. The Amduat emphasizes the importance of overcoming obstacles and facing challenges in order to achieve rebirth. Ra's journey through the underworld is fraught with danger, but he perseveres and ultimately emerges victorious. This message of perseverance and resilience is relevant not only to the deceased pharaoh, but also to all people who seek to overcome the challenges of life. The Amduat also highlights the interconnectedness of the living and the dead. The pharaoh's journey through the underworld is linked to the well-being of the entire kingdom. By ensuring his own safe passage to the afterlife, the pharaoh helps to maintain order and stability in the mortal world. The Amduat is a testament to the Egyptians' fascination with death and the afterlife. It provides a detailed and imaginative vision of what awaits us after death. It also offers hope and reassurance, promising that even in the darkest of times, rebirth and renewal are always possible. Fact 20. The Lost Army of Cambyses. The story of the lost army of Cambyses II, the Persian king who conquered Egypt in 525 BCE, is one of the most enduring and perplexing mysteries from the ancient world. According to the Greek historian Herodotus, Cambyses dispatched an army of 50,000 soldiers to attack the oracle of Ammonius at Siwa Oasis in the Western Desert. However, the entire army vanished without a trace, swallowed by the vast and unforgiving sands. This dramatic disappearance has intrigued historians, archaeologists, and adventurers for centuries, sparking numerous expeditions to locate the lost soldiers and uncover the truth behind their fate. Herodotus' account is the primary source for this story. He wrote that the army, after leaving Thebes, reached the oasis of Kurga and then set out across the desert toward Siwa. However, a powerful sandstorm, or possibly a particularly violent sandstorm, arose while they were en route, burying the entire army and obliterating any trace of their existence. The story has a compelling, almost biblical quality to it, highlighting the power of nature and the futility of human ambition in the face of overwhelming forces. For a long time, many dismissed the story as a legend or a fabrication by Herodotus, who is known for sometimes embellishing his accounts. The extreme conditions of the desert, the lack of any archaeological evidence, and the sheer improbability of an entire army disappearing without leaving even a single survivor or artifact made the story seem too far-fetched. However, over the years, various discoveries have lent some credence to Herodotus' account. Archaeological finds in the Western Desert, such as Persian-era weapons, armor fragments, and even skeletal remains, have suggested that there was indeed a significant Persian military presence in the region. These finds, while not definitively linked to the lost army, indicate that Cambyses did send expeditions into the desert, possibly to control trade routes or to assert Persian dominance. Several expeditions have been launched to locate the lost army, using a variety of techniques, including satellite imagery, ground-penetrating radar, and traditional archaeological methods. While some promising leads have been uncovered, no conclusive evidence of the army's fate has yet been found. The challenges of searching for the army are immense. The Western Desert is a vast and inhospitable region with shifting sand dunes, extreme temperatures, and limited access. Even with modern technology, it is difficult to locate and excavate potential sites. Some theories suggest that the army was not completely annihilated by a sandstorm, but rather succumbed to other factors, such as starvation, dehydration, or attacks by desert tribes. It is possible that the army became lost and disoriented in the desert, running out of supplies and water. The extreme heat and lack of shade would have quickly taken their toll on the soldiers. It is also possible that the army was ambushed by nomadic tribes who were hostile to the Persian invaders. The tribes may have attacked the army while it was vulnerable, looting their supplies and leaving them to die in the desert. The mystery of the lost army of Cambyses continues to fascinate us today. Whether the army was buried by a sandstorm, succumbed to starvation and thirst, or was attacked by desert tribes, its fate remains a testament to the dangers of the desert and the limits of human ambition. The search for the lost army is likely to continue, driven by the hope of uncovering new evidence and finally solving this ancient enigma. The lure of discovering such a significant historical find is a powerful motivator for archaeologists and adventurers alike. Fact 21. The Sea Peoples and the Decline of the New Kingdom. The Late Bronze Age collapse, a period of widespread societal upheaval and decline that affected much of the Mediterranean and Near East around the 12th century BCE, had a significant impact on ancient Egypt. One of the key players in this tumultuous period were the Sea Peoples, a mysterious confederation of seafarers whose origins and identities remain a subject of intense debate among historians. Their repeated attacks on Egypt and other coastal regions are believed to have contributed to the decline of the New Kingdom and the eventual fragmentation of Egyptian power. The Sea Peoples first appear in Egyptian records during the reign of Pharaoh Merneptah in the late 13th century BCE. Merneptah successfully repelled an invasion by the Sea Peoples, who were allied with Libyan tribes. The Sea Peoples are described in Egyptian inscriptions as coming from the northern lands and are identified by various names, such as the Checker, the Shikalesh, the Lukka, and Shardana. The exact origins of these groups are unknown, but they are believed to have come from different regions of the Mediterranean, possibly including the Aegean, Anatolia, and the Levant. The Sea Peoples were skilled seafarers and warriors. They attacked coastal cities and settlements, looting and destroying everything in their path. Their attacks caused widespread disruption and displacement, contributing to the collapse of trade networks and the decline of urban centers. The most significant confrontation between the Egyptians and the Sea Peoples occurred during the reign of Pharaoh Ramses III in the early 12th century BCE. Ramses III decisively defeated the Sea Peoples in a major naval battle in the Nile Delta. The battle is depicted in detail on the walls of Ramses III's mortuary temple at Medinet Habu. The inscriptions describe how the Egyptians lured the Sea People's ships into the Nile Delta and then ambushed them with a fleet of their own ships. The Egyptians used archers and spearmen to attack the Sea Peoples, and they eventually managed to destroy many of their ships. Despite their defeat by Ramses III, the Sea Peoples continued to pose a threat to Egypt and other regions of the Mediterranean. Their attacks disrupted trade, weakened governments, and contributed to the overall instability of the Late Bronze Age. The Sea Peoples are believed to have played a role in the collapse of several major Bronze Age civilizations, including the Mycenaean civilization in Greece and the Hittite Empire in Anatolia. The exact reasons for the Sea People's migrations and attacks are unknown. Some theories suggest that they were driven by climate change, resource scarcity, or population pressure. Others believe that they were simply seeking to loot and plunder wealthy coastal cities. The Sea Peoples remain one of the most enigmatic and controversial groups in ancient history. Their origins, identities, and motivations are still debated by historians and archaeologists. However, their impact on the Late Bronze Age is undeniable. Their attacks contributed to the decline of established civilizations and the emergence of new political and social orders. The story of the Sea Peoples serves as a reminder of the interconnectedness of ancient societies and the vulnerability of even the most powerful empires to external threats. Fact 22. Ancient Egyptian military and warfare. The military of ancient Egypt played a crucial role in protecting the country's borders, maintaining internal order, and expanding its influence in the region. Over centuries, the Egyptian army evolved from a relatively simple force to a highly organized and effective fighting machine. The earliest Egyptian armies were primarily composed of conscripted farmers and laborers. These soldiers were armed with simple weapons, such as spears, clubs, and axes. Their main role was to protect their villages and fields from raiders and to support the pharaoh in his military campaigns. During the Old Kingdom, the Egyptian army became more organized and professional. The pharaohs established permanent military units and appointed officers to command them. The army was still largely composed of conscripts, but there was also a growing number of professional soldiers. The Hyksos invasion in the Second Intermediate Period, c. 1650 to 1550 BCE, had a profound impact on the Egyptian military. The Hyksos were a foreign people who invaded Egypt and ruled for over a century. They introduced new weapons and tactics to the Egyptians, including the chariot, the composite bow, and improved armor. After the Egyptians expelled the Hyksos, they adopted these new technologies and transformed their military. During the New Kingdom, c. 1550 to 1070 BC, the Egyptian army reached its peak of power and effectiveness. The pharaohs of the New Kingdom, such as Thutmose III and Ramses II, led their armies on successful campaigns throughout the Near East, expanding the Egyptian empire and bringing vast wealth and resources to the country. The New Kingdom army was a highly organized and professional force. It was divided into infantry, chariot corps, and navy. The infantry was the backbone of the army and was composed of soldiers armed with spears, swords, shields, and bows. The chariot corps was an elite force that was used for shock attacks and for pursuing fleeing enemies. The navy was used to transport troops and supplies and to control the Nile and the Mediterranean Sea. The Egyptian army used a variety of weapons, including spears, swords, axes, clubs, bows, arrows, and shields. Spears were the most common weapon and were used by the majority of the infantry. Swords were used by officers and elite soldiers. Axes and clubs were used for close combat. Bows and arrows were used for ranged attacks. Shields were used to protect soldiers from enemy weapons. The Egyptians also used siege weapons, such as battering rams and siege towers, to attack fortified cities. Egyptian warfare was often brutal and bloody. Battles were fought with hand-to-hand combat, and casualties were high. The Egyptians often took prisoners of war who were used as slaves or forced to work on public works projects. The Egyptians also practiced mutilation and decapitation of their enemies. Fortifications played an important role in Egyptian warfare. The Egyptians built forts and walls to protect their cities and borders. These fortifications were typically made of mud brick or stone and were designed to withstand siege attacks. The Egyptians also used natural barriers, such as deserts and rivers, to protect their territory. The Egyptian military had a significant impact on the history and culture of ancient Egypt. The army protected the country from foreign invaders, maintained internal order, and expanded its influence in the region. The pharaohs were often military leaders, and their military successes were celebrated in art and literature. The Egyptian military also played a role in the economy, providing jobs and resources for the population. Fact 23. The role of pharaohs in ancient Egypt. The pharaohs were the absolute rulers of ancient Egypt, holding immense power and considered to be divine beings. Their role encompassed religious, political, and military leadership, making them the central figure in Egyptian society. They were seen as intermediaries between the gods and the people, responsible for maintaining ma'at, order and balance, in the world. The pharaoh's religious role was paramount. They were the high priests of all the temples in Egypt and were responsible for performing rituals and offerings to the gods. They believed that their actions directly influenced the well-being of the country and the success of the harvests. The pharaoh's coronation was a sacred event, symbolizing their divine appointment and their assumption of power. During the coronation ceremony, the pharaoh was ritually purified, crowned, and invested with the symbols of royal authority, such as the crook and flail. The pharaoh was also responsible for building and maintaining temples dedicated to the gods. These temples were not only places of worship, but also centers of learning, administration, and economic activity. The pharaohs commissioned elaborate artwork and sculptures to adorn the temples, showcasing their devotion to the gods and their power. In addition to their religious duties, the pharaohs were also the political leaders of Egypt. They were responsible for making laws, administering justice, and collecting taxes. The pharaoh's word was law, and their decisions were final. They appointed officials to oversee various aspects of government, such as agriculture, trade, and defense. The pharaohs also controlled the vast resources of Egypt, including land, mines, and quarries. They used these resources to fund their building projects, maintain their armies, and support the population. The pharaoh's power was absolute, but they were also expected to rule justly and wisely. They were seen as the protectors of the people and were responsible for ensuring their well-being. The pharaohs also played a crucial role in the military defense of Egypt. They were the commanders-in-chief of the army and were responsible for protecting the country from foreign invaders. The pharaohs led their armies into battle, often personally participating in the fighting. They built fortresses and fortifications to defend Egypt's borders and maintained a strong military presence to deter potential enemies. The pharaohs were not only rulers, but also symbols of Egyptian identity and culture. They were depicted in art and literature as powerful, wise, and just leaders. Their images adorned temples, tombs, and public monuments, reinforcing their authority and divine status. The pharaohs were also patrons of the arts and sciences. They supported artists, writers, and scholars, encouraging them to create works that celebrated Egyptian culture and achievements. The legacy of the pharaohs is evident in the magnificent monuments they left behind, such as the pyramids, temples, and obelisks. These structures stand as enduring symbols of their power, wealth, and ambition. The pharaohs shaped the course of Egyptian history for over 3,000 years, leaving an indelible mark on the world. Their role as divine rulers, political leaders, and military commanders made them the central figures in Egyptian society. Their legacy continues to inspire awe and fascination in people around the world. The concept of the pharaoh as a god-king was deeply ingrained in Egyptian culture. It provided a sense of stability and continuity, as the pharaoh was seen as the embodiment of the nation's collective identity. The pharaoh's power was reinforced by elaborate rituals, ceremonies, and propaganda, which emphasized their divine status and their ability to maintain order and prosperity. The pharaoh's court was a center of power and influence, attracting ambitious officials, priests, and military leaders. These individuals sought to gain the pharaoh's favor and advance their own careers. The court was also a center of intrigue and competition, as different factions vied for power and influence. Fact 24. Ancient Egyptian religion and mythology. Ancient Egyptian religion was a complex and multifaceted system of beliefs and practices that permeated every aspect of Egyptian life. It was polytheistic, meaning that the Egyptians worshipped a multitude of gods and goddesses, each with their own distinct roles, attributes, and domains. These deities were not seen as abstract concepts, but as real and powerful beings who intervened in human affairs. Egyptian mythology provided a framework for understanding the world, explaining the origins of the universe, the cycles of nature, and the mysteries of death and the afterlife. The Egyptians believed that the universe was created by the god Adam, who emerged from the primordial waters of Nun. Adam created the first gods, including Shu, air, and Tefnut, moisture, who in turn gave birth to Geb, earth, and Nut, sky. These deities formed the Ennead, the group of 9 most important gods in Egyptian mythology. The sun god Ra was one of the most important deities in the Egyptian pantheon. He was believed to travel across the sky each day in his boat, battling the forces of darkness each night. Ra was associated with life, light, and warmth, and his daily journey symbolized the cycle of death and rebirth. Osiris was the god of the afterlife, resurrection, and fertility. According to myth, he was murdered by his brother Seth, who scattered his body parts throughout Egypt. Osiris's wife, Isis, gathered the pieces of his body and resurrected him, making him the ruler of the underworld. Osiris became a symbol of hope and renewal, and his story was central to Egyptian beliefs about the afterlife. Isis was the goddess of magic, motherhood, and healing. She was known for her devotion to her husband, Osiris, and her role in resurrecting him. Isis was a powerful and compassionate deity who was worshipped throughout Egypt. Seth was the god of chaos, storms, and violence. He was the brother and murderer of Osiris and was seen as the enemy of order and balance. Seth was often depicted as an animal with a long snout and erect ears. Horus was the god of the sky, kingship, and protection. He was the son of Osiris and Isis and was believed to be the rightful heir to the throne of Egypt. Horus fought against Seth to avenge his father's death and restore order to the land. The Egyptians believed that the afterlife was a continuation of earthly life, and they took great care to prepare for it. They mummified their dead to preserve their bodies and provided them with everything they would need in the afterlife, including food, clothing, furniture, and tools. The Book of the Dead was a collection of spells and prayers that were intended to help the deceased navigate the dangers of the underworld and reach the afterlife safely. The Egyptians believed that the soul, or Ka, needed a physical body to survive in the afterlife. That's why they mummified their dead, so that their Ka would have a physical body to return to. Tombs were elaborate structures designed to protect the deceased and their possessions. They were often decorated with scenes from the afterlife, depicting the deceased enjoying eternal life. The Egyptians believed that the gods judged the deceased in the Hall of Truth, where their heart was weighed against the feather of Ma'at, truth and justice. If the heart was lighter than the feather, the deceased was allowed to enter the afterlife. If the heart was heavier, it was devoured by the monster Ammit. Animals played an important role in Egyptian religion. Many animals were associated with specific gods and goddesses and were considered to be sacred. Cats were associated with the goddess Batet and were highly revered. Killing a cat was considered a serious crime. Crocodiles were associated with the god Sobek and were worshipped for their power and ferocity. The Egyptians believed that the gods could manifest themselves in the form of animals. Religious festivals were an important part of Egyptian life. These festivals were held to honor the gods and celebrate important events, such as the annual flooding of the Nile. They often involved elaborate processions, sacrifices, and performances. Egyptian religion was deeply intertwined with the pharaoh's role as a divine ruler. The pharaoh was seen as the intermediary between the gods and the people, and his actions were believed to directly influence the well-being of the country. The pharaohs built temples and monuments to honor the gods and commissioned elaborate artwork that depicted their divine status. Egyptian religion influenced art, literature, and architecture. Religious themes were common in Egyptian art, and many of the most impressive structures in Egypt were built to honor the gods. The pyramids, temples, and obelisks stand as enduring testaments to the power of Egyptian religion. Egyptian mythology provided a rich source of inspiration for artists, writers, and architects. The stories of the gods and goddesses were depicted in countless works of art and literature, and they continue to fascinate us today. Fact 25. The ancient Egyptian sense of humor. While often portrayed as a serious and stoic civilization focused on death and the afterlife, ancient Egyptians also possessed a well-developed sense of humor, evident in their art, literature, and everyday objects. This humor ranged from slapstick and wordplay to satire and social commentary, offering a refreshing perspective on their culture and values. Uncovering these humorous elements reveals a more human and relatable side to the ancient Egyptians. Egyptian humor often took the form of satire, poking fun at social norms, political figures, and even the gods themselves. Satirical texts and illustrations mocked the pretensions of the wealthy, the incompetence of officials, and the foibles of human nature. These humorous portrayals served as a form of social commentary, challenging authority and reinforcing social values. Wordplay was another common form of Egyptian humor. The Egyptians were fascinated by language, and they often used puns, riddles, and double entendres to create humorous effects. These linguistic games required a sophisticated understanding of the Egyptian language and culture. Slapstick and physical comedy were also popular forms of entertainment. Scenes of everyday life, such as farmers tending their fields or craftsmen working in their workshops, were often depicted with humorous exaggeration and absurdity. These comical portrayals provided a lighthearted escape from the daily grind. Even religious texts and rituals contained elements of humor. The Egyptians often used humor to humanize their gods and to make them more relatable to the common people. The Book of the Dead, for example, contains spells that are intended to trick or outsmart the demons of the underworld. Examples of Egyptian humor can be found in a variety of sources, including tomb paintings, papyrus texts, and ostraca, fragments of pottery or limestone used for writing practice. Tomb paintings often depict scenes of animals behaving in human-like ways, such as cats serving mice or geese playing musical instruments. These comical portrayals serve to entertain the deceased and to provide them with a sense of amusement in the afterlife. Papyrus texts contain humorous stories, poems, and dialogues that poke fun at various aspects of Egyptian society. The Contendings of Horus and Seth, for example, is a humorous tale that tells the story of the struggle between the two gods for the throne of Egypt. Ostraca often contain humorous sketches and cartoons that provide a glimpse into the everyday lives of ordinary Egyptians. These drawings depict scenes of people dancing, playing music, and engaging in other forms of amusement. The ancient Egyptian sense of humor is a reminder that they were not just a civilization obsessed with death and the afterlife. They were also a people who enjoyed life and who found humor in the everyday world. The discovery of these humorous elements in Egyptian art and literature provides a more complete and nuanced understanding of their culture and values. Fact 26. Ancient Egyptian writing and hieroglyphs. Ancient Egyptian writing is one of the oldest and most fascinating writing systems in the world. It developed over thousands of years, evolving from simple pictograms to a complex system of hieroglyphs, hieratic, and demotic scripts. The ability to read and write was highly valued in ancient Egypt, and scribes held a privileged position in society. The earliest forms of Egyptian writing date back to the pre-dynastic period, c. 3200 BC. These early writings consisted of simple pictograms, which were pictures that represented objects or ideas. Over time, these pictograms evolved into more stylized symbols, which could also represent sounds. The most well-known form of Egyptian writing is hieroglyphs. Hieroglyphs were a formal, monumental script that was used for religious texts, inscriptions on tombs and temples, and other important documents. Hieroglyphs were written in rows or columns and could be read from left to right, right to left, or top to bottom. The direction in which the hieroglyphs were read was indicated by the direction in which the animal and human figures faced. Hieroglyphs were not simply pictures. They were a complex system of symbols that represented a combination of sounds, ideas, and objects. Some hieroglyphs represented single sounds, similar to letters in the alphabet. These are called phonograms. Other hieroglyphs represented entire words or concepts. These are called ideograms or logograms. Many hieroglyphs had multiple meanings, depending on the context in which they were used. Understanding the meaning of a hieroglyph often required a deep knowledge of Egyptian language and culture. The writing system also included determinatives, which were signs that helped to clarify the meaning of a word. Determinatives were not pronounced, but they indicated the general category to which a word belonged. For example, the determinative of a walking pair of legs might indicate that the word referred to an action related to movement. Because the script included both phonograms and ideograms, the same word might be written many different ways. Because hieroglyphs were complex and time-consuming to write, the Egyptians also developed a simplified, cursive script called hieratic. Hieratic was used for everyday writing, such as letters, documents, and literary texts. Hieratic was written on papyrus or ostraca, flakes of limestone, using a reed pen and ink. Hieratic was more cursive than hieroglyphs, and the symbols were often abbreviated or simplified. Hieratic was written from right to left in horizontal lines. Over time, hieratic evolved into an even more simplified script called demotic. Demotic was used for everyday writing and was even more cursive and abbreviated than hieratic. Demotic was the script that was most commonly used in Egypt during the Ptolemaic and Roman periods. The Rosetta Stone was a key to deciphering Egyptian hieroglyphs. The Rosetta Stone was discovered in 1799 during Napoleon's Egyptian campaign. It contained the same text written in 3 different scripts: hieroglyphs, Demotic, and Greek. By comparing the Greek text with the hieroglyphic and Demotic texts, scholars were able to decipher the meaning of the hieroglyphs. Jean-François Champollion, a French scholar, is credited with deciphering the hieroglyphs in 1822. Champollion's work revolutionized our understanding of ancient Egyptian language and culture. Without the Rosetta Stone and Champollion's work, we would know very little about the history, religion, and literature of ancient Egypt. The ability to read and write was highly valued in ancient Egypt. Scribes were responsible for recording information, writing documents, and preserving knowledge. They were highly respected members of society and often held important positions in the government or the priesthood. Scribes underwent rigorous training to learn the complex writing system. They studied for many years, memorizing hundreds of hieroglyphs and learning the rules of grammar and composition. The invention of writing had a profound impact on ancient Egyptian society. It allowed the Egyptians to record their history, preserve their knowledge, and communicate with each other over long distances. Writing played a crucial role in the development of Egyptian civilization and its lasting legacy. The Egyptians used a variety of materials for writing, including papyrus, ostraca, and wooden tablets. Papyrus was made from the papyrus plant, which grew along the banks of the Nile. The papyrus plant was cut into strips, which were then laid out in 2 layers, one vertical and one horizontal. The layers were then pressed together and dried to form a sheet of papyrus. Ostraca were flakes of limestone that were used for writing practice or for short notes. Wooden tablets were covered with a layer of wax, which could be written on with a stylus. Fact 27. The Sea Peoples and the Decline of a New Kingdom. The Late Bronze Age collapse, a period of widespread societal upheaval and decline that affected much of the Mediterranean and Near East around the 12th century BCE, had a significant impact on ancient Egypt. One of the key players in this tumultuous period were the Sea Peoples, a mysterious confederation of seafarers whose origins and identities remain a subject of intense debate among historians. Their repeated attacks on Egypt and other coastal regions are believed to have contributed to the decline of a new kingdom and the eventual fragmentation of Egyptian power. The Sea Peoples first appear in Egyptian records during the reign of Pharaoh Merneptah in the late 13th century BC. Merneptah successfully repelled an invasion by the Sea Peoples, who were allied with Libyan tribes. The Sea Peoples are described in Egyptian inscriptions as coming from the northern lands and are identified by various names, such as the Cheker, the Shikalesh, the Lukka, and the Shardana. The exact origins of these groups are unknown, but they are believed to have come from different regions of the Mediterranean, possibly including the Aegean, Anatolia, and the Levant. The Sea Peoples were skilled seafarers and warriors. They attacked coastal cities and settlements, looting and destroying everything in their path. Their attacks caused widespread disruption and displacement, contributing to the collapse of trade networks and the decline of urban centers. The most significant confrontation between the Egyptians and the Sea Peoples occurred during the reign of Pharaoh Ramses III in the early 12th century BCE. Ramses III decisively defeated the Sea Peoples in a major naval battle in the Nile Delta. The battle is depicted in detail on the walls of Ramses III's mortuary temple at Medinet Habu. The inscriptions describe how the Egyptians lured the Sea People's ships in the Nile Delta and then ambushed them with a fleet of their own ships. The Egyptians used archers and spearmen to attack the Sea Peoples, and they eventually managed to destroy many of their ships. Despite their defeat by Ramses III, the Sea Peoples continued to pose a threat to Egypt and other regions of the Mediterranean. Their attacks disrupted trade, weakened governments, and contributed to the overall instability of the Late Bronze Age. The Sea Peoples are believed to have played a role in the collapse of several major Bronze Age civilizations, including the Mycenaean civilization in Greece and the Hittite Empire in Anatolia. The exact reasons for the Sea Peoples' migrations and attacks are unknown. Some theories suggest that they were driven by climate change, resource scarcity, or population pressure. Others believe that they were simply seeking to loot and plunder wealthy coastal cities. The Sea Peoples remain one of the most enigmatic and controversial groups in ancient history. Their origins, identities, and motivations are still debated by historians and archaeologists. However, their impact on the Late Bronze Age is undeniable. Their attacks contributed to the decline of established civilizations and the emergence of new political and social orders. The story of the Sea Peoples serves as a reminder of the interconnectedness of ancient societies and the vulnerability of even the most powerful empires to external threats. Fact 28. Ancient Egyptian board games. beyond the monumental architecture and elaborate religious rituals. Everyday life in ancient Egypt included leisure activities, and board games were a popular form of entertainment for people of all social classes. Archaeological discoveries have revealed a variety of game boards and pieces, providing insights into the rules, strategies, and social significance of these ancient pastimes. These games were not just frivolous amusements. They often had symbolic and religious meanings, reflecting the Egyptians' beliefs about fate, destiny, and the afterlife. One of the most well-known and widely played board games in ancient Egypt was Senet, which means passing or passing over. Senet boards have been found in tombs dating back to the early dynastic period c. 3100 to 2686 BCE, and the game remained popular for over 3,000 years. Senet boards typically consist of 30 squares arranged in 3 rows of 10. The squares are often decorated with hieroglyphs and symbols, some of which have religious significance. The game pieces, called men, are usually conical or cylindrical in shape and are made of wood, ivory, or stone. The rules of Senet are not fully understood, but it is believed to have been a game of strategy and chance. Players move their men across the board according to the rolls of dice or throwing sticks. The goal of the game was to be the first player to move all of their men off the board. Senet had a deep religious significance for the ancient Egyptians. The game was seen as a metaphor for the journey of the soul through the afterlife. The squares on the board represented different stages of the afterlife, and the movement of the men across the board symbolized the soul's progress towards eternal life. Some of the squares were associated with specific deities or concepts, such as the House of Rebirth and the Waters of Chaos. The outcome of the game was believed to be influenced by fate and divine intervention. Another popular board game in ancient Egypt was Mehen, which means coiled one. Mehen boards are shaped like coiled snakes, with the snake's body divided into numerous sections or squares. The game pieces are typically small balls or marbles. The rules of Mehen are even less well understood than the rules of Senet. It is believed to have been a game of strategy and cooperation, with players working together to move their pieces along the snake's body. Mehen may have had a connection to the serpent deity Mehen, who is believed to protect the sun god Re during his nightly journey through the underworld. The game may have symbolized the struggle between order and chaos, with the players working together to maintain order and protect Re from the forces of darkness. Hounds and Jackals, also known as 58 Holes, is another board game found in ancient Egypt and other parts of the ancient Near East. The game board consists of 2 sets of holes, each representing a different player's territory. The game pieces are typically small pegs or cones. The rules of Hounds and Jackals are not fully understood, but it is believed to have been a game of strategy and tactics. Players move their pieces along the board, trying to capture their opponent's pieces or to reach a specific destination. The game may have symbolized the conflict between rival tribes or the pursuit of prey by hunters. The discovery of ancient Egyptian board games provides valuable insights into the culture, beliefs, and everyday life of this fascinating civilization. These games were not just simple pastimes. They were complex and meaningful activities that reflected the Egyptians' worldview and their understanding of the universe. Fact 29. The Coffin Texts. Democratizing the afterlife. While the pyramids and elaborate tombs of the pharaohs often dominate our image of ancient Egyptian beliefs about the afterlife, the coffin texts offer a fascinating glimpse into how these beliefs evolved and spread beyond the royal elite. These texts, inscribed on the coffins of non-royal individuals during the Middle Kingdom, c. 2055 to 1650 BCE, represent a significant shift in the democratization of the afterlife, making access to eternal life more widely available. Prior to the Middle Kingdom, access to the afterlife was primarily the domain of the pharaoh. The pyramid texts, inscribed on the walls of royal pyramids during the Old Kingdom, contain spells and rituals designed to ensure the pharaoh's successful journey to the next world. These texts were exclusive to the pharaoh and his immediate family, reflecting the belief that only the ruler could achieve immortality. The coffin texts, however, marked a departure from this exclusive system. For the first time, non-royal individuals could gain access to the knowledge and spells necessary to navigate the dangers of the afterlife and achieve eternal life. The coffin texts were inscribed on the interior and exterior surfaces of wooden coffins, providing a portable and accessible guide for the deceased. The texts were often accompanied by illustrations and vignettes that depicted scenes from the afterlife. The coffin text drew upon the pyramid texts, but also included new spells and rituals that were specifically designed for non-royal individuals. The texts described the various challenges and obstacles that the deceased would face in the afterlife, such as dangerous demons, treacherous landscapes, and divine judgments. The coffin text provided spells and incantations to overcome these challenges and to ensure a successful transition to the next world. One of the key concepts in the coffin texts is the idea that the deceased could transform into various divine beings, such as Osiris, the god of the afterlife, or Re, the sun god. This transformation allowed the deceased to gain access to the power and immortality of these deities. The coffin texts also emphasize the importance of moral conduct in life. The deceased would be judged by Osiris and a panel of deities, and their fate would depend on their actions in the mortal world. The coffin text provided spells to help the deceased pass this judgment and to prove their worthiness of eternal life. The coffin texts represent a significant shift in Egyptian religious beliefs. They marked a move away from the exclusive, royal-centered view of the afterlife to a more inclusive and democratic system. This shift was likely driven by a number of factors, including the rise of a wealthy middle class and the increasing influence of the priesthood. The coffin texts had a lasting impact on Egyptian religious beliefs. They serve as a foundation for the Book of the Dead, a collection of spells and rituals that became the standard guide for the afterlife during the New Kingdom and beyond. The Book of the Dead drew heavily upon the coffin texts, incorporating many of the same spells and concepts. The coffin texts provide a fascinating glimpse into the religious beliefs and social dynamics of ancient Egypt. They reveal a society that was grappling with questions of life, death, and the meaning of existence. They also demonstrate the power of religious beliefs to shape social structures and to influence the lives of individuals. Fact 30. The sacred scarab beetle, symbol of rebirth and transformation. The scarab beetle, Scarabaeus caesar, held a profound significance in ancient Egyptian religion and symbolism, representing concepts of rebirth, transformation, and the cyclical nature of existence. Far from being merely an insect, the scarab was deeply connected to the sun god Re and the journey of the soul through the afterlife, making it a powerful amulet and a recurring motif in Egyptian art and jewelry. Understanding the scarab's symbolism unlocks a deeper appreciation for the Egyptian worldview and their intricate understanding of the universe. The Egyptians observed that scarab beetles rolled balls of dung across the ground, often burying them in the earth. They associated this behavior with the sun god Re, who was believed to roll the sun across the sky each day. The Egyptians believed that the scarab beetle spontaneously generated from the dung ball, just as Re was born anew each morning. This association with spontaneous generation and rebirth made the scarab a powerful symbol of new life and transformation. The scarab beetle was often depicted in art as pushing the sun across the sky, symbolizing Re's daily journey and the cyclical nature of time. The Egyptians also believed that the scarab beetle represented the heart of the deceased in the afterlife. The heart was considered to be the seat of intelligence, emotion, and memory. In the afterlife, the heart would be weighed against the feather of Ma'at, truth and justice, to determine whether the deceased was worthy of eternal life. Scarab amulets were often placed over the heart of the deceased to protect it and to ensure that it would pass the judgment of Osiris. These heart scarabs were typically inscribed with a spell from the Book of the Dead that instructed the heart not to testify against the deceased. Scarab amulets were also worn by the living as a symbol of protection and good luck. They were often made of faience, a glazed ceramic material, and were decorated with hieroglyphs and other religious symbols. Scarab amulets were believed to ward off evil spirits and to bring blessings to the wearer. The Egyptians also used scarab beetles as seals and stamps. Scarab seals were made of stone or faience and were carved with the owner's name and title. They were used to authenticate documents and to mark property. The scarab beetle was a ubiquitous symbol in ancient Egyptian art and culture. It appeared on jewelry, amulets, seals, and other objects. The scarab's association with rebirth and transformation made it a powerful symbol of hope and renewal. The Egyptians believed that the scarab beetle could help them to overcome the challenges of life and to achieve eternal life in the afterlife. The sacred scarab beetle is a reminder of the Egyptians' deep connection with nature and their belief in the cyclical nature of existence. It symbolizes the power of transformation and the hope of rebirth, offering a timeless message of resilience and renewal. The enduring appeal of the scarab beetle is a testament to its profound symbolism and its ability to resonate with people across cultures and generations.